So let's get to this first story. This is what everyone is talking about. Everyone's freaking out. This was the clip that's been going around this morning. This is the copy that Disclosed TV put. With Trump's approval, Border Czar Tom Homan announces that the deportation surge operation in Minnesota will conclude. Take a look at what he had to say.
With that, the success that has been made arresting public safety threats and other priorities since this surge operation began, as well as the unprecedented levels of coordination we have obtained from state officials and local law enforcement, I have proposed, and President Trump has concurred, that this surge operation conclude. A significant drawdown has already been underway this week and will continue through the next week.
So obviously people are not super thrilled about this for good reason. I think I'm going to steelman the opposition here. Because like I said at the top of the show, the victory condition for the left in Minneapolis was a drawdown, right? That's what they wanted. That's what they said. I mean, their signs, ICE out, get these people out of here. We don't want you here. This is our community. We saw Kyle Rittenhouse, the big chunky guy with the firearm walking around his neighborhood because he wanted to repel ICE from the city. There's two different... My apologies. My throat is still very dry from the week. I promise next week I'll be firing on all cylinders. There's two sort of lines of thinking here of how we should move forward. The first one is do not let up until every illegal immigrant has been removed from Minneapolis and to crush these leftist protesters. Again, we saw this. If you remember, this entire operation in Minneapolis started following Nick Shirley's video. Nick Shirley, obviously a street journalist, citizen journalist. He went on the ground in Minneapolis and he documented all these daycares that were operating in Minneapolis with basically no children, exposing this massive racket that was going on at the behest of the Somali community, I guess for lack of a better word, in Minneapolis. It was really a dramatic thing. I mean, it was shocking to see fraud right before your very eyes, because typically these sorts of things you see in data or you see different headlines, but it's unclear what it actually looks like. Actually going there with a camera and seeing these daycares firsthand and making these people defend what they've been up to was really something to see. And in response, the DHS at Kirsty Noem's direction flooded the city with 3,000 agents. So there's 3,000 DHS agents that were deployed to the city to mop up Tim Walz's mess, the governor of Minnesota, the seriously retarded governor of Minnesota per President Trump. And so this happened. The DHS agents flood the city. And following that, the leftist agitators all across the city and all across the country, because we had obviously the leftist elements in Minneapolis, but people started pouring in from across the country. You were seeing some of these interviews on the streets or some of these arrests, people from Portland, Seattle, really everywhere, Chicago, Missouri even. I think Renee Good hailed from Missouri. So you saw all these people coming in to the city, and it really became kind of this flashpoint for effectively being a referendum on Trump's deportation operation. And it turned into a thing. That's what happened. It turned into a thing. So then the Renee Good killing happens, where she tries to ram an ICE agent with her car. And things just really get out of control there. And so that's when there was two options presented to the Trump administration. Is, A, do we keep pressing on here? Because, look, when the initial surge of DHS agents flooded into the city, we knew what the victory condition was for the left. They wanted to just repel the federal government completely. But it was unclear what the win condition was for the Trump administration. How many deportations do we need before we could say job is done? It became kind of a quagmire in some ways, I would say, again, to maybe defend the Trump administration, because I mean, what exactly would the victory look like for us? Every single Somali deported from Minneapolis, I mean, this would take quite a long time. Every leftist arrested, every leftist agitator arrested. Again, these are things that I would like to see, but how realistic is that to happen within a few months? I don't think that's entirely realistic. Again, these sorts of things take quite a bit of time. Rounding up every Somali in Minneapolis, it's not entirely realistic to happen in a few months. But it's also, you kind of have to negotiate from a position of strength. I mean, we learned this in the Biden administration when they withdrew from Afghanistan. It's similar to here. Okay, the correct decision probably is to eventually start winding down in Afghanistan. There's no question about that. Even the Trump administration actually was the one that implemented the plan to withdraw from Afghanistan. But it's when you sort of give away your hand, when you just leave suddenly, it turns into a bit of a mess. And so, again, withdrawing from a position of strength is very vital here. And so that's the calculation the Trump administration has to make in Minneapolis with this deportation surge operation, is they have to determine, have we accomplished our goal, right? What was the goal? Have we accomplished it? Okay, now it's time to withdraw. And that's, I think, what is occurring here, because, again, there's only so many resources to go around with these three-letter agencies, ICE, CPB, DHS. Like, they only have so many agents. How long do we want to keep bearing down in Minneapolis? That's the question. And it appears that Trump and Tom Homan have both made the calculation that, okay, it's time to start reallocating some of these resources elsewhere in the country to continue this deportation operation. Things in Minneapolis maybe have gotten to the point where it's not entirely productive to be there. And that's a fair calculation to make, and it's something that I would concur with. The problem, and I've made this point since the operation began in Minneapolis, is you kind of have to make a statement in Minneapolis. Like, this is different than if we were, conducting operations in Los Angeles or Seattle or wherever in the country. Is what happened in Minneapolis is it became the flashpoint. It became the battleground for pro-ICE and anti-ICE, really just ICE versus these anti-ICE leftist agitators. And so that's why this withdrawal, this statement, does feel like a capitulation of sorts. People are saying, well, you're kind of giving them what they want, even if this is something we would have done anyway. It's about the optics, right? So the question is now, with this withdrawal, does this embolden leftists? Does this give them the feeling that, hey, if we chimp out long enough, we can repel federal agents from our cities? It's a question that's worth pondering. Later in this press briefing, Tom Homan said something quite encouraging. So here's what he had to say. Here's the copy from Disclose. They said, from Tom Homan, "For those that say we are backing down from immigration enforcement or the promise of mass deportations, you're simply wrong. Look at the data." So here's what he had to say. Take a look at this.
For those that say we are backing down from immigration enforcement or the promise of mass deportations, you are simply wrong. Look at the data. Record number of arrests and deportations under President Trump's first year. And we'll continue that effort. Prioritizing public safety threats and national security threats doesn't mean we'll forget about everybody else. We will take action on everybody else. That's just a stone cold fact.
So this is why I think the correct take here is actually a bit in the middle, right? I know it's not like a nuclear hot take or anything. I'm not trying to sound like a fence sitter here, but I think it's true. I think you can simultaneously be disappointed in this decision because it does feel like it emboldens leftist activists while preventing, while not just coming out and saying mass deportations aren't happening, MAGA's dead, et cetera, et cetera. Like this headline hit at the same time. Because what you have to do when you're analyzing the Trump administration's performance on deportations is what is the left's reaction? Are they celebrating? Are they saying finally mass deportations is over? Because people on the right, a lot of different people from a variety of positions or sort of, I guess, ideologies that are on the right in this big tent are declaring that MAGA is dead. They're declaring that mass deportations is not happening. It's a failure. But what is the left saying? They're not saying that. They're not saying MAGA is dead. They're not saying mass deportations are over. They're saying the opposite. They're saying, this is the most dramatic escalation from the right in history. We're terrified. This is an authoritarian regime. They have not. I don't think they actually view this as a victory, because this was a headline from NBC News. And this is true. This is what's happening. Trump administration is dramatically expanding effort to revoke U.S. citizenship for foreign-born Americans as it works to curb immigration. So again, we're seeing remigration. This has been the ticket. Remigration. This is what we've been wanting to see from the Trump administration. Is okay. It's one thing to deport violent criminals. That's great. That's the priority, obviously, because of the people that are actively harming Americans. But if we really want to conduct mass deportations, part of what's going to have to happen is we need to take a look at the citizenship of a lot of these people that have showed up recently. Because, again, if you're trying to restore the country to a previous sort of iteration, you need to look at a lot of these people that came in recently. So this is, again, very encouraging.
One sec.
Oh, this is very encouraging from the Trump administration that, again, they're taking a look at remigration. They're actually expanding a remigration sort of regime here. So again, this is why I think you can simultaneously be disappointed with the decision that was made in Minneapolis without declaring that we're failing, because we're certainly succeeding on the deportation front. I mean, this is still absolutely massive. Again, I put this tweet up right before we went live here. It's from CBS News. This is the headline: as pathways to freedom have narrowed in immigration courts across the United States, a record number of detainees are giving up their cases and voluntarily leaving the country. So obviously, you have these people on the left who are declaring that Trump's running concentration camps. So again, when you have people on the right that are declaring MAGA is dead, mass deportations aren't happening, that's one thing. People on the left don't think that that's the case. People on the left are accurately analyzing the situation. They're saying we're bleeding, we're losing, and they're declaring this as concentration camps. As we said, this is the most benevolent concentration camp in history, where you're encouraged to leave and go home. So with that, I mean, you have to go back to the larger reality, because it's one thing to do these shock and awe campaigns like we're seeing in Minneapolis, but when you look at the whole, what's been happening with the Trump administration, what is the general mood, what is the atmosphere around migration in the United States? Again, it's not favorable. It's not favorable for pro-immigration proponents. This was from the Census Bureau. This is a headline: new population estimates show historic decline in net international migration. Peaked at 2.7 million in 2024 and has declined to 1.3 million in 2025. So again, you're seeing, and they're projecting it to decline further, another 320,000. So again, if you're looking at the deportation situation, the general environment around migration in the United States is still very much in the camp of mass deportation. It's certainly taking the boot off of the neck and allowing Americans to not feel like we're being completely flooded here. We've turned the tap off. That's really something. That's really something, a sight to behold. This is why I want to get into where the Trump administration should continue to press. This is a sort of a team of analysts that post some really useful information on Twitter. The White Papers Policy Institute. They put this data up. 37% of Nicaragua's GDP is remittances from the United States, 6.2 billion. So remittances is when a foreigner that's in the United States, they make money from the American economy. They extract money from the American economy and they send it back to their home country. This is what a remittance is. And a lot of people that are, wanting to see mass deportations in the United States, they say, this is all great, you can deport people, but to really kick this into overdrive, you need to eliminate the incentive structures for people to be in the United States in the first place. And the main way to do that would be to cut off remittances. It would make it very difficult for people that are here working in the United States to send money back to their families, to their friends, etc., in their home country. So I'll read here some of the data. 37, I read that one. 25% of El Salvador's GDP is remittances from America. 27% of Honduras's economy is remittances. 19% of Guatemala's economy. 70% of Hispanic migrants are using the welfare state. So again, 70% of migrants from Latin America are currently using some form of welfare assistance from the United States government. Americans are paying, effectively, this is a laundering operation where Americans are paying money to Latin American migrants who then in turn send that money back to their home countries.
It's the American economy.
It's the American economy. They're extracting money from the American economy and from American taxpayers, and they are shipping that money overseas. That's what the remittance system is. And then as you can see here, these countries, their GDP is dependent on remittances from the United States. It's absolutely shocking to see. And so this is why people have accurately come to the conclusion that the only way to really clamp down on migration to, again, people will just start self-deporting if they can no longer justify their existence in the United States because they're not making enough money to send back home. Rog Nationalist, he put some thoughts up, and this is 100% accurate. He's British, and Britain's obviously dealing with a similar situation. One of the easiest ways to achieve this would be to tax remittances at 100%. America should do this. The UK should do this. Every nation that wants to send home millions of migrants should do this. If they can send that taxpayer money home, many will go home voluntarily. It's absolutely true. I know in the Big Beautiful Bill, there was a provision to start taxing remittances, but this should be taxed at 100%. If you're coming to the United States, if you come here, whatever, if you want to reside here, you shouldn't have one foot out the door. You shouldn't have any loyalty to your home country. You should be all in. There shouldn't be an instance where it occurs to you to send money back to your home country. This is why taxing remittances at 100% would be a no-brainer, because then the people that would be coming here would not be coming here with the intention of funding people in a different country. They would be coming here to operate 100% all America. So really some dramatic stuff. With that, the immigration debate is all over the place. People are still going at it. This was yesterday, Sir Jim Ratcliffe. He made this statement. Tommy Robinson got the clip here. Quote, "The UK is colonized by immigrants," Man United co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe says. Very, very wealthy man. Again, some are saying he's the wealthiest in Britain. His net worth like $20 billion. You can't have an economy with 9 million people on benefits and huge levels of immigration coming in. I mean, the UK has been colonized. It's costing too much money. The UK has been colonized by immigrants, really hasn't it? I mean, the population of the UK was 58 million in 2020. Now it is 70 million. That is 12 million people. If you're a little new around here, Britain, the native population is declining. They have a negative birth rate. It's the same thing in the United States, but the UK, their birth rate's even lower. So 12 million people, that's not births. Certainly not births from natives. That is new arrivals to the country. And if you ask young people in the United States or the United Kingdom how they're faring, they're not going to be very, they're not going to compliment the economic conditions in their country, to say the least. It's very limited, right? Housing's extremely limited. Most young people have given up on owning a home. They're having difficulties in the job market. They're struggling to find jobs. Even cars, it's really difficult to find a used car that's affordable that you can, make your commutes in. It's really just, it's grim. And if the population is declining for young people, it should actually be easier for young people to get a leg up, because there'd be more resources freed up because the older population is larger. So that means there's more resources coming down the pike for young people. Everything should be getting cheaper. And that's not happening because they're flooding the country. So if you're, like me, you're 25 years old and you're, now sort of setting up your life, now you're competing against the entire third world, who will work for half the price as you, and their expectations, their standards are far lower. They'll live in tighter, they'll pack more people into a house. They'll accept a inferior car, these sorts of things. So Jim Ratcliffe's absolutely correct here. And of course, everyone's freaking out. Suella Braverman, she's a Reform candidate or a member of Parliament. There's a lot of controversy over here, but she made a good statement here. People squabble over terminology, but Jim Ratcliffe is right. Many areas of Britain are now totally unrecognizable compared to 50, 20, or even 10 years ago. Unprecedented levels of mass migration today make me so angry. The British people have seen how their streets have changed, how multiculturalism has failed, and their sense of pride and history has been altered and distorted. They have been called racist for speaking the truth, but Britain's culture and resources have been eroded. Mass migration is the problem. And this is absolutely correct. And this is a really, actually excellent framing from Suella Braverman, because, look, you can make all the economic arguments of why mass migration is failing the native populations of these countries, and there's no question about that. But even if these people were like net contributors to the economy, even if it was like a miracle mass migration, I think people still have the right to have a say over what their country actually looks like. So again, let's just, for the sake of argument, let's just say that these migrants coming to the United States, for example, were actually net contributors. Let's say they are outperforming Americans. Let's say that they were net contributors to the economy, to the tax base. Like, these people were economic miracles. We would still, as Americans, have the right to not want them here, because we would like America to remain the same. We would like America to be familiar. We would like our cities, our towns, our schools to be American. That's a perfectly valid concern to have. Like, the demographic composition of your country is up for debate. That is a valid concern to have. And so that's why I think this framing is actually excellent from Suella Braverman here, because she's conceding that, yes, like, economically, it makes no sense to have migration. And that alone, I use these arguments all the time. I just did for 20 minutes. Alone, on migration alone, the economic argument should be enough to remove all these people from the country. But beyond that, these people are changing the country. The UK is different now. I go there all the time. The UK is not British anymore in a lot of parts of it. And it's not just London anymore. It used to be just London, but now it's Huddersfield. Huddersfield is completely capitulated. As Jim Ratcliffe put, it's been colonized by foreigners. That's 100% correct, and that's unacceptable. And as you can see here, the leftist or left-wing media in Britain is freaking out. LBC, one of their commentators said, Jim Ratcliffe is wrong in every meaningful way. James O'Brien can't believe that the media are welcoming debate as to whether the Man United's owners' comments were right. Carl Benjamin, absolutely correct here. Jim Ratcliffe is directly over the target. All they can do is splutter, curse, and spit at him, but they cannot describe how he is wrong. So, absolutely correct. I'm glad Jim Ratcliffe actually stood up, and he's, as we can tell, still standing on business. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has called for him to apologize, but he shouldn't because he's correct. And I think everyone in Britain, this sort of understanding that he is correct, because they can just look around their high street, as we would call it, their main street, and see that it is different. It is no longer British, and we have the right for our children to inherit a country that is British, that reflects them. That is a perfectly sensible position to have.